Hello and welcome to Network Now, a podcast designed to help build business connections and create opportunities. I'm Lee Foster of Revitalize Connecting People, and with me today are the most wonderful ladies in the world, our co-hosts Julie Taylor and Louisa Stewart of the Blue Ninja Business Support. Louisa, over to you.
Thank you very much, Lee. Happy to be here. And today we'd like to welcome our very special guest, Robert Hercus, joining us from the United Arab Emirates. But apparently this time you're in Scotland, aren't you?
I am. The Highland coo in the background of the wall gives it away. I'm home for a visit. And I brought the sun with me.
Thank you. That was very kind of you. So, Robert is an online health coach who helps burnt out professionals to reignite their energy and productivity, rediscover mental clarity and focus, and if they need to, lose weight almost effortlessly. Robert's approach focuses on adopting sustainable lifestyle changes that anyone could do no matter who you are by controlling metabolic hormones through nutrition and, most importantly, without even setting foot in a gym unless you really want to. He didn't always do this, though. In fact, he's a former overweight, self-conscious, stressed, and exhausted chartered accountant. So he can absolutely relate to the pains and struggles of those busy professionals who want to get healthy and lose weight, but don't know where to start. What an introduction, Robert!
Was that enough for you?
Amazing. I suddenly paused on the word overweight, and I thought that can't possibly be. You look so trim and so fantastic. What's going on? Well, thanks very much for joining us. So let's dive into our questions. Robert, where did your networking journey first start?
So I remember in my previous corporate career that the senior people would always bang on about networking and how important networking was. And at that point, I was in my early to mid 20s, and I was kind of like, yeah, I know, we've heard it all before. Networking's really important, but didn't really buy into it, or I didn't believe it really. And it wasn't until I left my chartered accounting corporate career and I launched my health coaching business. And in the early days, I was thinking, right, it's all about social media. Social media is where it's at nowadays. That's what to focus on. And it was just a coincidental chance conversation with a woman who was front desk at a office I was using as my registered office address. And she said, oh, have you heard of another networking group that I'm a part of? And I had never heard of it. I had no idea what she was talking about. Completely new world to me. And just on her recommendation, I went along as a visitor to one of their meetings. And the rest is history, really. Just pure chance conversation on a recommendation, went along to a meeting, and that was it. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And since then, I became a member of that one, and I'm also a member of Lee's Revitalize group as well. So, and it's been fantastic. I absolutely love it.
Brilliant.
And in regards to when you did all that as well, and you went through all the networking, the biggest thing I always like to ask everybody, Robert, what was your biggest challenge? But most importantly, we want to get a further understanding of maybe the tipping point of when, that international or networking in general really started happening for you, started to become engaging. When was the tipping point from the challenge?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say, that's probably a few challenges. I'll mention two. The first one is actually just getting started and getting into it. I think it's quite easy to get a bit nervous about going to these big networking groups of a lot of people that you don't know, particularly in person. I think it's perhaps easier online. And we'll maybe talk about the difference between the two later on. But, just the nerves associated with talking live to a big group of people, it's essentially public speaking. So, that's probably one of the challenges I had to overcome, is just doing it, getting over the nerves. And you quickly realize they're all just human beings like me. So there's nothing to be nervous about. So just, get involved and have a good time, enjoy it. But the other biggest challenge I would mention is not spreading yourself too thin. So I think a mistake I've made in the past is especially when I was new to the self-employment world, and when networking was new to me, I went to various different networking groups, joined a lot of meetings, tried to have lots of one-to-ones, thinking I was doing the right thing because I was meeting so many people. But then you can't really cultivate those relationships because you're meeting so many new people all the time, and then it's impossible to keep on top of the meetings that you had a month ago. They're a distant memory by the next month if you just keep on trying to meet new people all the time. Obviously you want to meet new people constantly, but it's getting that balance right and still cultivating those relationships that you've made previously.
Cultivating, Lee, it's making me sort of think of your hunter farmer.
Farmers, hunters,
again.
Cultivating, love it.
Love it. I think I'm a little bit guilty, a bit like you, Robert, of just turning up at the opening of an envelope. I'm like, networking group, and it's just like, it can just be a bit too much, can't it? Especially when you can't remember where you've been because you've been to so many. I was interested in what you're saying about getting started on nerves. How did you get over your nerves when you were starting out?
The thing is, I don't think there's a silver bullet. Like, you just have to do it more and more and more, and eventually, over time, the nerves just start to go away. The honest answer is, there was no secret to getting over the nerves. The nerves were just there until they weren't, if that makes sense. So I think it's the same with anything in life. You will always be a bit nervous of something new that you're a bit scared of, perhaps, until you just do it enough times that your brain, I guess, realizes there's nothing to fear here. There's nothing to be scared of. It's all good.
But you're talking about your specialist subject. You're talking about yourself and your experiences in your business. So surely, sort of honing that story, that'll give you some confidence.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. The more you do it, I guess the familiarity with what you are saying, your story, and how easily it just rolls off the tongue, it gets more natural. Whereas in the early days of doing your, standing up at a networking group and giving your 60-second pitch, for example, first few times, especially if you're not practiced, it is a nerve-wracking experience. But when you're really familiar with it, it like the back of your hand, then that definitely helps the nerves for sure.
Yeah, we've touched on accents a few times this week, and I know I've been guilty, and I'm sure there's some other people as well, as being excited and just going blah, 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 and just talking so fast, and it's just like, slow down. You don't have to get all the words into 60 seconds. You don't have to tell them your life story, and you can have different variations of your story to tell different groups as well. That'll keep them on the toes, and maybe changing the glasses and the hair and maybe the hat. Then they're trying to think, I met you before, I'm not sure. So I'd be interested to know how you found networking over in the UAE. How's that been different?
Yeah, that has been a learning curve as well, and quite different. So what I did before I even moved across, I just basically started sharing the fact that I'm moving. That's what you have to do, is tell people about it. I did that when I actually moved. I put a big announcement share post on my social media to say, this is it, the dream's coming true, I'm moving over to UAE. And naturally then people see that and then reach out to you and say, I've been over in the UAE for however many years, we should meet up sometime. And then naturally you get invitations to these one-to-one meetings, meet someone for a coffee, and then you get introductions made through that way. But also in my networking groups, I started sharing with everyone that I was moving in there as well. And it's amazing how many people know someone or know someone who knows someone who is in the UAE. There was actually one woman in Revitalize who is based in the UAE, and I'm sure you all know Marina. But so that way I ended up getting introductions to people, second degree connections, that people who I knew, and then they would, kind enough to send an email, copy everyone in and say, this is, I'd like to introduce you to Robert. He's moving out. Wonder if you would be up for a meeting for a coffee. And that's exactly how I started. It was just offering to buy someone a coffee and say, I'd really appreciate it if we could just meet up. I'm new here. I don't know anyone. Not quite, begging people to be my friend, but just offering to buy a coffee, have a chat, and see where it leads, and just being open-minded to that sort of thing.
The power of a cup of coffee, isn't it?
Yeah, powerful offer.
Well, especially Robert buying someone a cup of coffee. All due respect on that one, but it's like
as if I don't usually buy people a coffee.
No, you do.
No, and then. Yeah, so that then led to other things like I met a couple of guys for a coffee one day, and then that led to an invitation to a networking event at the Dubai 2020 Expo, which was fantastic.
Yeah,
just that chance, introduction, coffee, invitation, and then I'm going to a event at the Expo. So it's all about relationships and talking to people and sharing what you're doing, what you're up to, and asking for help. People love to help people. If you just say that you need help with something, chances are you will get people offering to help you, because people get a lot out of it, I think.
I think it's such a big thing as well, because people always focus on the business, they focus on the sale, they focus on the opportunity. But actually all you're looking for is support and knowledge and help from each other as well. And when you ask somebody like what you've done there in a different type of area, in a different place around the world, it only takes that one connection to introduce you to somebody else. But it's like what you just said earlier, it's having that confidence in yourself to actually go out there and meet them. But it makes it easier when you've got your close-knit circle of people who you can reach out to first, and it just bridges the gap for you as well, Robert. So good to hear that. And it's good to hear that you utilized your, as I like to call, the tribe, the people that's in the tribe itself. The question for me as well, because when you look at like testing and you're looking at measuring like networks that you're part of, right? And especially going into a completely international marketplace, right? Of where you were traveling from Scotland, going straight into a different place where you didn't know. How did you test and measure your networks or organizations that you're part of? How did you start doing that? What worked well? What didn't work well? What you could improve moving forward?
I suppose haphazardly is the honest answer. There was no formal process I went through to measure, and I know that's something that one of your monthly sessions with the accountability on measuring our activity and engagement. That's really helpful, because I'm not naturally very good at that. But yeah, I think probably just gut feel on where what I would reflect on a week or a month and think, oh God, I haven't been very active in that area, or haven't had one-to-ones with that group of people. So there's maybe some room for improvement there in a bit more structure.
Do you ever find that you come out of an event, or you come out of a meeting and you always think, do you ever think and like review what you've done when you came out of those meetings, especially when you're overseas?
Oh, definitely. Usually think, I wish I'd spoken to that person, or I never got a chance to have that conversation. But I think, like as long as you make the most of the time you've got to speak to the people and follow up and cultivate those relationships, then like you can only do the best that you can with what you've got, I suppose.
Yeah, no, very true indeed. Thank you.
Yeah, and that, I think that does happen with events. We've talked before about if you're not sure about attending an event, you can reach out to people that are going, but still, might not get around to meet everybody. So you can always follow up with I'm really sorry we didn't get time to meet up, and then book a one-to-one that way as well. So there's always opportunities there.
Yeah, true.
And Robert, I mean, your situation's slightly different from our other guests this week, because the circumstances of networking is quite different, and that makes this session so wonderful, because there will be people that have moved from one country to another and have gone through what you've been through. Like Julie and myself have moved countries, and you sort of have to start almost all over again with your approach, because you might have a network from where you were, but they can't really understand where you are now. So there's difference in how you how you approach it and sort of what you've learned and different things. So, I mean, what would be your key advice for having an international networking footprint from your own perspective?
Well, so something I should share actually is that so the last 3 months were my first ever 3 months in the UAE, and in that time I actually only signed new coaching clients from existing UK based networks. So I'm yet to have a client in the UAE. But the thing is, when you're moving to a new country, as you say, you're starting from afresh. Everyone already has their established circles and networks. And I think it would be wrong to go in and expect to just announce your arrival and then expect people to all of a sudden just start wanting to work with you in whatever your business or service is. So, I had various meetings that I remember quite clearly. It was a great conversation, really great connection to make, but ultimately they had their health coach or personal trainer that they were already working with. So for me, it didn't necessarily lead to anything, but that's okay, because that's life, and it's to not be disheartened by that. Keep chipping away at it. It's about consistency and patience, through that consistency, and eventually you will make a great introduction, a great connection that will lead to a flourishing relationship and hopefully business relationship. And so I guess the other point there is that don't forget about your existing relationships. Just because you've moved to the UAE, in my case, don't abandon your existing networks and relationships, because they're still so valid and important. As I found out, I was still signing new clients from the UK, or from those networks. Like I have a client in Australia, but ultimately that was through a UK network.
Yeah, and I guess part of your time now will be looking at your potential competitors in the UAE and sort of seeing what the game is already, in where you are, and what they're doing, and sort of seeing if there's similarities or differences, things you might need to tap into that you might not necessarily have known about being in the UK.
Yeah, definitely. There's cultural differences of which I'm still learning about, and just the way life is over there, the expat community. There's a huge expat community, but life is different over there. It's a different way of living, different climate, which changes exercise opportunities, for example. So there's definitely lessons to be learned through just observing what other people are doing, but also the nature of what I do. I've always, even when I was in the UK, I was doing it for 18 months before I moved. I was always online, and I was always I like to think myself as global, international, because my furthest client west was Colorado, and my furthest client east was Australia, and a few places in between as well, primarily focused on UK, but some in Europe. And so I think, I always was tapping into the international health coaching community and observing what everyone was doing, really, because it's a very globalized world nowadays. You've got access to everything online and through social media platforms, so you need to stay current and up to date, with whatever the latest trend is. Reels right now, for example, which I've had a little dabble in. So,
how do you, just quick question there, sorry, with regards to likes of online and balance, because we met through online marketing, through virtually, and then we met face to face back in Edinburgh. That was last year.
Mm-hmm.
Are you finding that the online and the in person, are you embracing both those elements as like a hybrid offering? Are you getting the balance with two?
Yeah, definitely embracing both. And for me, it's about balance, because one of the things I struggled with before the rules started to relax a bit and we could meet in person was I get a lot of energy out of meeting people in person in real life. I'm an extrovert, and I like to meet people in person. That's what energizes me. And when we were purely online, it works. It can work, and obviously it kept things ticking over. But It's if you're exclusively online, for me anyway, that it was quite draining, especially a full day of nothing but Zoom calls. It's I guess I don't think it's natural. And part of my philosophy as a health coach is all about trying to, be or embrace as much of a natural way of living as we can in this, hyper civilized technological world that we now live in. So it's definitely about balance. And on the flip side, to completely disregard online networking would be a huge disadvantage. There's so many opportunities that can be opened up from networking online. So embrace both, get the balance right, and that'll be unique for everyone. I would imagine.
Yeah. And we've got a comment in the chat from Robin Callender. Thanks for joining us, Robin. Fantastic session, guys. Personally, I feel confidence comes from when it's evident that you are filling a knowledge gap with your audience and vice versa. It's a very valid comment.
Yeah. So when you naturally feel like an authority in the room in whatever it is that you are, whatever knowledge you're sharing, that definitely helps with confidence for sure.
I also think as well, it's the confidence when you're speaking to somebody, you can identify the gap, because many people don't identify the gap in networking or in business development or in anything when they're chatting to somebody. If they can identify the gap, you've got confidence to go, I can actually fill that quite comfortably. That makes a massive, especially if it was you in the UAE and you're speaking to somebody and it's from a fitness and it's from a health and nutritional point of view, and you go, yeah, I can drop straight in there perfectly. That'll probably infuse you with more confidence, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's easy to forget that. But I think when you're so familiar with what you know, it's quite easy to forget that other people don't know it. And so actively reminding yourself that you are an expert in whatever it is that you do. So remember that people don't know this stuff and you are an authority on that subject. Because I do find it easy to forget. It ends up becoming just so natural. It's like, oh yeah, just nothing special. Everyone knows this, right? Well, no, they don't.
That's a good point from Julie. She said before, it's that you go at 100 miles an hour in a networking event and you're literally the conference, you spill everything out really quickly and you're trying to cover every angle like one piece with everything. But you've got to realize that probably most of the room haven't got a clue who you are. And you've really got to take your time to go through an educational piece and just drop it in gently to build upon that. Yeah.
And maybe only focus on one point in one group and sort of spread it out a bit. You don't have to tell them everything from start to end. But I know that Louisa and I sometimes go back and we have to go back to the beginning of when the client started with us and think about why they came to us as pain points, which people, and I don't always like that term, but why do people come to you? And that's a good way of telling a story of, X came to me because of Y, and how you fill the gap, how you resolve the problem, if we're like going to use the P word. So yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well, Robert, is there anything that you'd like to share, maybe your details about your programs, just with our audience?
That would be great. Yeah. So, I mean, I do operate purely online, although when I've had clients, that are close and in proximity to me, I have met in person, but primarily online. And the way I deliver that is through Zoom calls and a private Facebook group to create that community aspect, and also an app on smartphones. And that's where all my clients get a portal in there to, record their nutrition and their exercise, and as a one-to-one direct line to me. And my two main offerings are a 16-week program. That's like my flagship coaching program, 16 weeks to really embed long-term sustainable lifestyle change. And it is lifestyle change. It's not a diet, because as most people hopefully know, diets don't work. It's about creating a healthy lifestyle, and then everything else falls into place. Weight loss is a byproduct of being healthy, is what I always try and teach people. But for anyone that is maybe a bit scared, nervous about doing a 16-week commitment, especially if nothing else in the past has worked, I do also do a 21-day jumpstart, and that's focused on gut health. And I do that in collaboration with I'm an affiliate of Synergy Worldwide, and they offer the highest quality supplements I've come across. And so there's pre and probiotics as part of that pack. And we focus on healing the gut as a starting point, and then everything falls into place. It's just it's a byproduct, weight loss and energy and better sleep and all these things. So that a lot of people like that as an introduction towards a healthy lifestyle change. But I'm also transparent with everything about that and saying that, 21 days doesn't fix 10 years of abusing your body. So it's an intro, but don't expect it to fix everything for the long term.
Mm-hmm. And where can they, what website can they go to find your details, Robert, or social media?
Yeah, so I'm on most of the main social media platforms. So LinkedIn, just Robert Hercus, same with Facebook and Instagram as well. And website is brawhealth.com. I'm at some point in the near future going to be moving to roberthercus.com, but for now it is brawhealth.com. BRAW health.
Oh,
very Scottish.
Incredibly Scottish. Can we give it?
The definition I've gone with for that is great, grand, or glorious. So bra health.
Love it.
Who wouldn't want that?
I think with what you're talking about, Robert, as business people, we can sometimes forget to stop and look after ourselves. So I think that service is really important. So it's not, you might network and really focus on development, but also you need to think about your personal side and looking after your health. So you'll be proud to know that Julie and I have been working out together. We go to the gym once a week. Torture each other. It's very good with our trainer, but we also believe that there is an element of personal health that you must be aware of when you're in your business. So really important messaging there too.
No, and that's fantastic that you're doing that, because you're naturally bringing in one of the main pillars of what I do, is that creating accountability. Now, accountability could come from a coach, a friend, a personal trainer in a gym to make sure you go. But accountability is so important, and not just in health though, in so many things. If you're accountable for whatever you are committing to, you're more likely to follow through. So you guys have ticked that box.
Brilliant.
Lovely. Well, I think that just about wraps it up for today's session. Thank you so much, Robert, for joining us on.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's been great to talk to you guys.
Great. Such excellent insights and conversation from today's session. Tomorrow we'll be wrapping up the week and going through the lessons learned, so don't miss out on our conversation. For our fantastic guest speakers, Christine Tudhope, Brent Edwards, and of course, Robert Hercus.
Thank you so much, Rob. I really appreciate you joining us this afternoon. And make sure you're all following us on LinkedIn, Facebook, subscribe to the on the Revitalize and Blue social media platforms. Check out the podcast network now on Anchor FM, Spotify, for other great conversations. So I think we're just going to say goodbye to everybody now. Once again, goodbye, Robert. Thank you, Robert. Goodbye from Louisa, and goodbye from Julie, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow for the wrap-up session. Take care, everybody. See you all soon. Bye-bye for now.
Thanks. Bye.